Look at the gap between him and Lando, almost 78 points.
Yeah, it's like a whole 88 points.
In whole 88 points. So, what are your thoughts? The Dutch Grand Prix last time out in 2023, it was a homeboy who won it, Max Verstappen. But this season, Red Bull started very, very brightly, but they petered out towards the end, and the McLaren team seems to be catching up. What are your thoughts ahead of the uh, Netherlands Grand Prix? How do you think it will pan out, especially with this break of about 3 weeks? What are your thoughts, Lerato?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, Red Bull has not been looking as strong as we've been accustomed to seeing them. They've been struggling. And of course, there's been all this chatter in the media about um, this braking system, this
Oh
asymmetric
yeah,
braking system
oh
that
yeah,
they think is what has been giving them an edge over, like, at the beginning of the season, and possibly even during the previous season. This is what people are saying, but this is all speculation anyway. In as much
yeah,
as I understand it,
yeah.
there hasn't been any proof that Red Bull
Sure, sure.
has possibly had
No,
this kind
no,
of,
no
like,
investigation yet. Yeah, sure.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But I mean, even if they were to investigate now, what would they find? It would be very retroactive.
Yes.
Um, but I think also it is. I think this much later into these ground effect regulations, other teams are catching up. I think Red Bull did really have one leg up in terms of their aero under Adrian Newey. And this is what for me I think gave them a leg up. But I don't see them having an easy pass on the next one. It seems from what I've been reading, PS3 is very determined to go after the number one and two spots, um, or possibly, just to shoot for second, um, and beat Charles Leclerc. I know also Toto is saying something about that kind of a thing, that possibly Mercedes could be third. Um, but yeah, it's looking very interesting with some of the upgrades that I think some of the teams are going to be bringing to Zandvoort. I know they would have only had this week to sort of work on upgrades and things like that
Yeah.
after the summer break. But from what they had been bringing even before, over the last two races, it looks like there could be progress. So it's going to be interesting. We're looking to see how McLaren will keep up the competitiveness. And I think, like, yeah, like I said, with Piastri feeling confident after his last few performances with a win in tow, he would be very, very confident to try and do something out of that. We're still sort of looking to see um, if Lando is going to redeem himself also, in terms of strengthening his performance and also chasing after that number one spot. Because he's the one person who's the closest. I mean, he could sort of get to 275 in three races if he wins them. And that's what is required of him to sort of um, at least get close to Max. We know that Max Verstappen never finishes anywhere beyond fifth place. Even when he started 10th or 11th, he finished fifth, I think, at West. Um, so regardless of how bad the Red Bull car is, It seems like, even I mean, there was a statement by Helmut Marko, who was saying Max is the only person who seems to be able to handle this car. Um, so yeah, we will be looking to see what it is he's doing around. It's his home race, and I'm sure
Oh
he'd
yeah,
be looking
a lot of
to
his
show
fans
up.
will be rooting for him.
Yeah, and yeah, sure. And from what from also what I read on, I think it was Racing 365 or something, is that um, Red Bull is actually removing some of the parts that they've added as upgrades, sort of like reverting back to the earlier setups of the car, which they think will put them back in contention.
Yeah,
And it'll be interesting then to see how that will sort of match up with all the other teams that have then thus far made all these great improvements.
absolutely. Max Verstappen's 2024 season standout based on his start. His start has been blistering, but around Miami, he started to regress. And this scandal that has come out now, basically scandal of the using illegal brake bias system has tainted their performance in the early part of the season. They're under scrutiny for potentially using a brake bias internal valve, which could have provided a major advantage in tire preservation and car balance. But people are saying they cheated, and the moment they stopped using it, it started to affect them. But these FIA rules are a little bit ambiguous, really, in my own opinion. Article 11 of FIA rule says the brake system must be designed so that within each circuit, the forces applied to the brake pads are of the same magnitude and act as opposing pairs on a given brake disc.
Yes.
So they are saying that this particular valve that the FIA has said a no to, that Red Bull was using it in the early part of the season and it was instrumental in their winning of races. I don't know what your thoughts are, but I don't think that's cheating really, because most of FIA's rules have loopholes, and the engineers and the designers in the teams try to see a way of circumventing those loopholes. But what are your thoughts, Lerato?
I mean, I did say this in the last race, that if a team had figured out a loophole in terms of how to use a braking system that gives them more grip and all those things, then that is an engineering feat, it wouldn't necessarily be cheating. um, of course, if Red Bull had also done this without checking with the FIA, which is what I know teams normally do when they want to try new innovations, then that is what could be seen possibly as or whatever. But I don't see it as cheating, and which is why we haven't seen also the FIA sort of take a stance to say we found anyone cheating. I think that the latest statement has been that no team had been using this system, and they are adjusting these rules in preparation for 2026. Um, but of course, the coinciding drop in Red Bull's performance is what has been raising red flags in terms of that. But I think also what we've seen in history is that there's been sort of like these innovations. For example, in 2020, Mercedes had their dual axis steering, sort of, I don't know if we can call it a scandal, but they had that upgrade that they had fitted to their car, um, where a driver could control the length of the steering by either pushing or pulling the steering towards them, and things like that, and that gave them a bit of an advantage in terms of turning certain corners, like
Maneuvering.
steering when they need to and oversteering when they need to. Um, I think another classic example, I think that speaks a little bit more directly to this braking excellence that McLaren had. I think it was in 2007, I think, or something like that. Where they had like a third paddle in their car as a brake. I think it was when I think Coulthard was still driving for them,
Yes,
and Raikkonen. I
it
think,
was
yeah,
bad. You're right.
yeah, 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 yeah. Um, and I think Adrian Newey was part of the technical team at that time also. Um, so there's always been like this push in terms of the laws, and then the FIA retroactively would say no, 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 you cannot do that, and of course there is the question of when this loophole is found, do you either um, alert all the other teams and tell them they can develop their own systems within the same kind of, like, uh, within the same kind of functionality, with the same kind of functionality and things like that, or do you um, uh, just scrap it altogether? The FIA always seems to scrap something as opposed to allowing other teams to develop it. I think this is one of the points that they made about the fiddle break, because the fiddle break was genius. First of all, it was a cheap upgrade, like just fitting an extra pedal, an extra cable, and I think possibly an extra brake caliper, or clamp on the one wheel that they would need to do this on, depending on um, how the track behaves, and where the sharpest turns are. So of course, when you tell other teams this late in the season and they try to replicate the system, that development time takes a while for people to get correct and to get right. And sometimes also then for safety reasons, I suppose this is why the FIA opts for sort of disallowing these things and just banning them altogether.
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
and possibly then, yeah, they'll consider possibly using them in other future regulations or things like that, if
True,
possible.
true, true. McLaren has been very competitive in the first quarter of this season, and they've really given Red Bull a run for their money. What do you think has been responsible for this? They've really pushed Red Bull all the way. They've been very competitive this season. And if Red Bull are to be looking behind their backs, I guess it's McLaren they'll be seeing the clearest. What do you think has been responsible for McLaren's resurgence to give Red Bull a run for their money, really?
Yeah, yeah. I think this started very much over the last few races of 2023, um, and then throughout the winter break when they were doing development. I think they got a new wind tunnel, and some of the facilities that they've had upgraded at McLaren have really given them an edge on developing the car. And like and like I say, this deep into the new ground effect regulations, everyone is starting to get a grip of how to design for these regulations, at least for the next couple of years. Um, so that is exactly what gave McLaren an edge. And of course, I think, like I said, in the last few races, we saw Lando really coming forward, and really performing very well. And then as soon as the year started, it was clear that they were the people who were in contention, or who were the closest to contend with Red Bull, um, for this year's title, because
Yeah,
Mercedes was nowhere. Well, it was between, actually, McLaren and Ferrari, because Ferrari really looked good at the beginning of the year, and they seem to have dropped off. I think possibly in the last five races or so, or since Monaco, when we saw Leclerc take the win.
let's take the win.
But yeah, but Sainz had really been pushing earlier in the year. Even the brief showing of Ollie Berman in the Ferrari really showed Ferrari's prowess in terms of what it is it's able to do. I mean, I think Berman is he's 14th on the F1 standings
Oh
in
yeah,
terms of points. He has more points than seven other drivers who drive F1 every week, and he's only driven one race in that Ferrari. So I think I think that there has been this comment of all these cars sort of like being on a knife edge, except for the Red Bull, which was comfortable for the large part of the year. Um, so it's like I think it's like a thin line that each team is like riding in terms of setup, in
yeah,
terms of getting the car in the right window,
right.
for them
Yeah,
to then like go for the wins. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. But where do you see Mercedes in this Dutch Heineken race, or possibly let me take in a broader perspective. There are 10 races to go, where the second half of the season. How well do you think Mercedes will perform, considering the fact that even Ferrari have not been very consistent? McLaren, the only team that is giving Red Bull a run for their money. How do you think Lewis Hamilton and George Russell would perform in the next, half of the season, going by their recent performances before the break? What are your thoughts, Lerato?
Yeah. I mean, I think it seemed like they figured out the bulk of their problems, and they're confident with the package that they have now. I mean, so much so that when they would in first practice at Spa, they had put on upgrades and then they took them off as well, sort of regressing to the setup that they had at Hungaro and Silverstone, which seemed to they were 1 and 2, as the race ended, and then we saw that disqualification of Russell's, that came because of weight issues and things like that.
Yeah,
Read up or hear an explanation on what it is, that caused that weight loss, that massive weight loss in on Russell's car. Of course, everybody's saying tires and not picking up rubber and all those things, um, in the outlet, but no one else also picked up that. But I think that is like one of those problems that have to do with the inconsistencies of how the FIA applies these rules. Um, but I think, judging from the fact that over the last four races they were on podiums, um, they're looking like strong contenders in terms of taking away points from Red Bull that they need very crucially in terms of driver standings, as well as in terms of the constructors competition.
Yeah, absolutely. We're looking at the track here in Netherlands. This looks like a track that suits a driver that's used to complex curves and everything. Two DRS zones and the long straight between um, um, 1 and 14. How do you think a driver like Verstappen would cope with this kind of a track? What are your thoughts on this track? Do you think it's complex?
Yeah,
How do you see it going?
yeah. So I mean, I think a car with turning issues, with steering issues, whether it's understeer or oversteer, is going to have heavy challenges
Yeah,
across
sure,
this track.
sure, sure.
Um, and and yeah, so I would think one of the things that Red Bull would have wanted to do is to solve their steering problems with or without a brake assist system, if they did have one. Um, we're still unclear on that. And yeah, and I think what I've seen with how McLaren has been dealing uh, with any kind of track, actually, but mostly the tracks with these kind of like sharp turns, slow corners that are a little bit more demanding. They've been doing very well. I think there was one particular shot that I remember where Lewis Hamilton was chasing behind Lando Norris in one of the earlier races. I think it was in Baku. I can't remember, uh, but he was really out of the corners. He was getting away from Lewis Hamilton in at a really frightening pace. Um, and of course, yeah, if when a car is able to move across the turns, when your aero is correct, and your downforce is on point, you'll be able to get through a track like this at blistering speeds. Um, so as long as I think Red Bull doesn't have uh, these turning issues, it won't be a big challenge for Max Verstappen. But we know he's up for any challenge in terms of
Absolutely,
his driving style. Yeah, yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. He's a very bullish driver, so he'll be able to sort of tame the car enough for him to get the speed that he needs to get. So we can't count him out yet. And then I think it'll also be interesting to see how Aston Martin has been developing, as well as kind of like the fifth fastest so far. Um, because they did seem to have the feeling that they've been making some good improvements in the past few races. Although it might be that we're looking to see Austin do well in the next year and the year after that, with the new facilities that Lawrence Stroll has been building um, in Silverstone. They really have an amazing looking new facility that they're building with new wind tunnels. A similar, I think we're going to see a similar kind of trajectory that we're seeing now with McLaren, with Aston in the
Aston,
next
yeah,
couple of
sure.
years,
Absolutely,
um, and
absolutely.
with Nui, yeah, with Nui sort of like pinned to be part of Aston Martin. It's going to be interesting to see what gains that they could make, possibly, um, with all the stuff that they're going to have at their disposal with upgrading cars and things like that.
Absolutely. So what are your let's try and predict what are your predictions for this Netherlands? Let's not go straight to the race. Let's say qualifying. Let's go to qualifying.
Yeah,
What are your predictions for qualifying for the Dutch Grand Prix? I say Max.
yeah. I try to stay away from predictions,
Okay.
but I think I mean in as far as what we've seen, it's been between Max, Lando, Piastri,
Mm,
um, Leclerc, Lewis, um, Science. Sometimes he's in, sometimes he's struggling,
um,
and Russell. Alonso usually ends up in the first 10 also, and then also then your wild cards are like your Yuki Tsunoda, Ricardo, or who's the guy from Ocon.
Ocon,
I,
Esteban
I,
Ocon.
yeah, Esteban Ocon, or maybe like some of the Haas guys doing very well. Pierre Gasly has also
Yeah, Gasly.
made it up to 10th spot several times. So yeah, so I think in terms of like the first
Let's
like the
say
top 10,
top
those
five.
those
Let's leave it at top five.
top five, I would say Max would be there. Lando definitely, PS3, Lewis,
Also,
yeah, I think those would probably be the top five. If Ferrari is still struggling, then you can exchange Leclerc for Russell.
yeah.
Um, but I mentioned those five in no particular order.
Other, yeah, yeah.
I know
I agree
they
with
would
you.
be the top performing five.
So I agree
Um,
with you.
yeah.
So basically,
So yeah. So I think yeah. I think we'll start seeing clear signs on Thursday when they start
yeah, sure.
having first practice. Yeah.
So, and I think one person who is going to be under tremendous pressure is Sergio Perez. Haven't been given, haven't been given like a second chance going into the
True.
second half of the season. There'll be a lot of pressure on him. He was about to be, his contract was about to be revoked because of his performance. But I think he'll kick in, he'll improve. What are your thoughts on
Yeah. I
Sergio
didn't even
Perez?
count him as part of my first 10 because I've clear like I've clean out forgotten about him. But I think that's also like a very interesting thing when you think about whether Red Bull has been having this unclear advantage or whatnot. We haven't seen this advantage pay off for Perez. So I
For
think
Perez, yes.
that's another thing for me that rules out this idea that they may have been doing something illegal or cheating or whatever. Because
Yeah,
yeah, unless they would have put it on one count and not put it on the other,
for
which
sure,
would be
for sure,
which would
for
not
sure.
be like the Red Bull team that wants to win
So you're right about that
first.
because even last season that they were so dominant, there were no stories about an illegal breaking valve or something, and yet they kept winning. So Perez has been underperforming, yet they say they
Sure,
are
sure,
doing
sure.
stuff. Yeah,
So yeah, so we don't know, and unless Perez was bad at using the system, which is why he kept crashing into walls. So yeah, we don't know, but I think he's a pretty like coherent driver. If
no,
there was a
sure.
system that was assisting him around turns, he would have been fighting for second, third, and fourth throughout every race, and we haven't seen him there for a long time. So I think for me that rules out this idea that Red Bull was cheating. I think it's just something with the upgrades that went wrong, and we know that what went wrong immediately after Nui announced that he would be leaving. So immediately
Absolutely.
when he was no longer inputting in terms of how to move the car forward, then the car sort of stalled in progress, in my opinion, whilst everyone else was catching up. Um, so yeah, but we'll see. I'm looking forward to seeing what's gonna happen
Yeah,
over the
sure.
weekend.
I'm a little intrigued to see what's gonna happen, but I really don't see anything to it. Thank you very much, Lerato. It's been wonderful discussing F1 with you again. We
Yeah,
should be
man.
back again at the weekend to see how the Netherlands Grand Prix pan out. From me, it's Afolabi, and from Lerato in South Africa. Have a wonderful night. Thanks so much for your time.
Peace, peace, brother.
Yeah.